I went out to see Prince at Nassau Coliseum. It was a terrific show. Prince is one of the most dynamic performers you will ever see. He was just totally entrancing you. And then he got down on the stage and went still. We began to get self-conscious. And then you heard a voice, and it was the voice of God talking to Prince. Up until then, Prince had been the rebel. Now he was maturing. I got a call from Bob Cavallo saying, we want you to see the film. It's called Under the Cherry Moon. This is the first time a recording artist has written and directed a film himself. And this film is about a scamp on the French Riviera. He and his friend set their sights on a gorgeous, wealthy young woman and decide to con her. Instead, Prince ends up falling in love with her, and the film was wonderful. But because Prince had leave you feeling morally cleansed, morally in line with God, at the end, he kills that scamp. He had to kill that scamp. Whose voice really was that voice of God? It was the voice of his father coming alive in him. That's the transition Prince was going through. First, you rebel against your father. Then you become your father.
When one discovers oneself, I think they discover God. Maybe it's the other way around.
Suburban Chanhassen, Minnesota may soon become world famous for music and video.
It is the site of Prince's Paisley Park Media Complex, where homegrown music is being made in 3 recording studios, and where feature films and music videos are being made in a giant soundstage.
And the studios at Paisley Park are state-of-the-art. The setup will accommodate motion picture filming and production of commercials in addition to music recording.
So we've shot one video here. It's offered us anything that LA or New York has. It's probably the finest soundstage in the country right now.
Well, people like Prince, Sheila E., and maybe also some members of the Time are going to be there.
Well, they're planning to do all this, Daryl, but do they actually have commitments right now?
So they do have a lot of commitment from a lot of big-name stars. Now, this is the first time a lot of people have gotten a chance to take the tour of the studio, and I have to point out it is extremely impressive. This is not going to be just a music studio. They are also planning to make feature-length motion pictures here. Stars.
When they first began to conceptualize Graffiti Bridge, I think that these were the characters.
The original script for Graffiti Bridge was me, Prince, and Madonna. And Prince flew Madonna out to Paisley Park.
Either originally we were going to do a musical together, and we were going to write the music for it, and that didn't really pan out. And we'd gotten together a couple of times, you know, in the hopes of working with each other. And
Madonna didn't like the script, and Prince was telling her, well, I'm still writing it. They started arguing, and then they started writing on each other.
And he seemed to fight the idea of just writing songs for a record together, because he's done that with so many people.
Well, Madonna said the script sucked.
Madonna drove Prince crazy, and they were arguing and talking about the script. Then they started talking about each other's shoes. Prince, look at your shoes, with cowboy boot shoes. Then she goes to Prince, look at your shoes with those peace signs and zippers and Two big egos.
You know what I mean? We just kept getting together. And
so Madonna said to Prince, I want to leave. It's too cold in Minneapolis. Sad because Prince had planned a party for Madonna, but Madonna was ready to go. But what Prince decided to do was like, let's have dinner. Prince's chef made food for Madonna and Prince. When Madonna got there, she saw all these candles, and she said, what are we having, a seance or something? And they never ate the food, and then she told Prince that she wanted to leave, but before she left, they recorded that song, Like a Prayer, and it was another song they recorded together.
And Love Song was one of the songs, and I just said, you know, this is crazy. It's such a great song. Why not put it on the record? And it seemed to relate just because it's about a relationship that's, you know, a hate-love relationship. And so he agreed to it, and we kind of sent the tapes back and forth to each other, and we keep building it. It was like he would write a sentence, and I would add on to it, and then send it back to him, and he would continue the story, you know, basically. It was fun.
And then she left.
I think that Prince lives a very isolated life, and I don't, and that is the big difference between us. And I just try to be a positive influence on him. I've always been a fan. I think he's incredible, and I also admire. He's very courageous, and he causes lots of controversy, too, which is great, and I think he is a brilliant musician.
Interesting. Well, we'll look forward to hearing from you tonight. Ken, maybe you can talk to Prince.
You know, when we started working on Sign of the Times tour, we had already recorded a bunch of the songs that were going to be on the Black album.
Like he always did. Here's your cassette, go learn this album, because he would do it all in the studio. At the time that I had the album in my hand, some of the songs we already had been jamming on.
We actually started rehearsing those songs on the Black album. Songs like Cindy C., Rebirth of the Flesh.
We started getting that album underway, rehearsing.
Very quickly, that all just kind of got axed.
Out and said, we want the tapes back. Please hand your tapes back in. And we did. And we didn't know why at the time. I didn't know anything about it. And later, I got the story as to why he changed his mind about it. And it had a lot to do with the content of the music. And then I kept hearing rumors he started experimenting with some stuff. But I don't know any details, and it's not my business.
And that might have played into it. Around that time, he was experimenting. There was a person who suggested that this would be a good idea for him, and he tried it. The song Lovesexy and Alphabet Street on that album reflect experimentation. You kiss your enemies like you know you should, and you jerk your body like a horny pony would.
Yeah, that's true. He had a trip. Don't think it was a bad trip. Like the song says, this is not music, this is a trip.
But that would only be part of the reason why he would have pulled the Black album.
Mo said, you know what, if this is what you want, then we'll do it. At great cost. He believed in going with artist feelings. Mo, of course, was very hurt. He had been a huge supporter and done a lot for Prince. Most record company heads, they would have said, yo, you got a contract with us, and that's it.
That's why contracts don't work. Companies hold this contract up and say, well, you signed it. The way I looked at it, I owned the work, I paid for it. I created it, it should belong to me.
He just took Prince on his word that he didn't want it out.
So he went to yank it off the dogs.
I had no idea about this Black album or anything that was going on in his head, so it wasn't a conversation because he didn't talk to me about it.
He was puzzled. It was kind of like, okay, where do I go from here? What's next for Prince?
He was in a dark space, fighting with evil and good.
I just want people to know that I'm very sincere in my beliefs. I've been accused of a lot of things contrary to this.
I gave Prince his first Bible for Christmas one time, big, nice Bible. Prince, I think it's just a little confused in some things. I mean, see, because you can't serve two gods.
He was a prime target at congressional hearings for sexual references like those in his song, Darling Nikki.
I met a girl named Nikki. I guess you could say she was a sex fiend. I met her in a hotel lobby with magazines.
He used to come out in the bikini underwear, and he'd rub up against the guys in the band, and then he'd go and kiss the girl keyboard player.
Situations got real tense because everybody was leery of saying the Lord's Prayer on stage, and then going right into a tune about something, sexual.
It was this incredible turmoil, thinking, why isn't this making me happy? When you're in that turmoil, peace is something you want, but you have no frame of reference. You have no idea what peace is, much less how you're going to get it. I was tired of being at odds.
His fans say he's sexy. His detractors say he's disgusting. We say he's difficult to ignore.
He also became more demanding of people's time.
Paisley Park Studios were open. He had me go out to Los Angeles to do post-production on the concert film Sign of the Times. Prince flew out, plane arrives at LAX. He tries to reach me, and I went out on a date. My first date in 4 years. The next morning, he was livid. We go into a little vocal booth, and we just went toe-to-toe. And he said, where were you? I said, I was on a date. And he said, you can't do that. And I said, I have to. We both knew it was over.
Everything started changing. People who were on the day-to-day were shifting gears.
December 1st, 1987, on a Tuesday night. That's when that all happened and changed.
An interesting night. Totally unexpected. That was the famous night.
One Tuesday night, I went alone. That Tuesday night's Williams Pub had funk night. Prince walked in. He kept looking at me, and there was just something sad in his eyes. He sent him a note. Hi, remember me? Smile, I love it when you smile. He invited me over and he asked me what my name was. I said Gertrude. He said his name was Dexter.
And then he asked me if I wanted to take a drive to Paisley Park. And I said, okay.
That night, I was at his house in Chavez.
So we took a drive there. I sat in the front seat and he sat in the back seat. We got to Paisley Park and he put me in this room. I think it was just a room with some candles. Let me just see what you can do. And I was like, okay. And I had no idea what I was going to do. I was just writing.
And when he finally came to pick me up, he said, Kat, I met this girl. She's so beautiful. Her name is Gertrude. Ingrid Chavez was at Paisley Park recording. He had left her at Paisley Park in Studio A to record her poetry.
A few months after we parted ways, he pulled me out to Paisley Park at midnight.
I met Susan Rogers. He disappeared. I didn't know where he was.
And I told Prince, why did you leave her at Paisley Park by herself? And so I got on the phone with her, and I said, hi, Gertrude. And she said, hi.
I don't really remember it that clearly.
So I told him to go back to the studio.
Played some little percussive instruments and created a couple of songs, and I think he thought I was pretty weird when he heard them. There was backwards vocals and all kind of crazy stuff. After that, he said that we would go into the studio and record them.
That same night, he went to Paisley Park and started recording Lovesexy.
You know, that was the kind of the beginning of a very creative period in both of our lives.
I wanted to make it about an experience that changed me, made me think differently about what I wrote, why I wrote, how I acted towards people.
You know, he was beginning to question, his own spirituality and God and love and that relationship. We were both just in a spiritual, creative space. I spent a lot of time just hanging out at Paisley Park.
I make music all the time, and I love music. I love making music, the creation of it.
It was really just a 3-month period, and it was winter in a snow cave or something for 3 months where it was just me and him. I'm writing and he's writing and we're talking and we're sharing, and I'm writing him letters and poems. He's writing these songs and having me come listen to every time he records something. He's like, listen to this one, listen to this one. It was moving so fast.
There's some songs that I've done that people have told me, wow, I feel like I want to make love. I feel sexy when I listen to this. If I could convey this feeling somehow, there's no words to describe how important that is to me when I do something.
When I came into his life, it inspired him to begin writing about it and finding a way to express what he was going through.
Like I said, he had an epiphany.
As an artist, sometimes you just want something to come along and crack it open again for you because you're stuck. So I guess that's what I did. The Prince that I knew from that winter, he was in creative mode. We're going to take everything that we can from this moment and we're going to put it to music.
All this happened really quick. We were very much inspired by each other, and it was special.
When you look at Lovesexy and the May 1992 record, they mirror each other in theme and ideas and words and visuals. Those two records belong together.
Through our friendship during that period, Lovesexy was born.
And he saw God, and he saw heaven, and he saw something better.
There is something else, and if we're wrong, and if I'm wrong, and there is nothing, big deal. But the whole life that I just spent, I at least had some reason to spend it.
It was a really beautiful time.
And that's how he ended up naked on the cover of Lovesexy. I wasn't there when he did the photo shoot. No one was there. We just saw it. All the band members, we saw it at the same time. We were like, oh, it was different.
But a lot of record sellers are taking this very seriously. Musicland stores will put the album behind the counter, sort of like a nudie magazine. You'll have to ask for it.
We were against the album cover. We were against the sequencing. It was one track. Dude, radio can't program the damn record.
Flash forward to Lovesexy tour.
It was like, I want you to come watch the rehearsals because I have a surprise for you. And he was so excited for me to hear Across the Line in the intermission. And then when it was over, it was over. It was like, okay, I'm going on tour now. But, after that, it was kind of like, okay, I guess that was that.
Met him in December, February, March. I don't even know if we even hung out much after that. We actually wound up not talking for a couple of years after that. And then getting together and finishing the record and then making a movie and then not talking again.
The first real tour he had done in the States since Purple Rain was Lovesexy. The Lovesexy tour was originally supposed to play the States when the album came out, play Europe later.
In the States, you get a lot of people who are sort of jaded, because they're just MTV, to death. So they expect things. And when you don't do what they expect, they lash out, and It's real confining for a musician.
At the last minute, Prince insisted that we rebook the tour to play Europe first and the States later.
People I find here, they don't expect you to do something. They almost want you to do the unexpected.
Magic somehow. You don't really know who he is.
All the records are different.
Perhaps there's a bigger audience in Europe. There are people who have real different kinds of taste in music.
His music is really, I mean, it's very difficult music. Not that, not boring, always different.
They really get off on new things, new creations, and that's what we're about.
I mean, it's a legendary tour for the production value. Very expensive tour to mount.
Lovesexy tour, you just can't put it in any old place. You need a big arena. Most cities have one. Both Madonna and Michael Jackson were touring Europe at the very same time.
For many of the fans, it was a long wait. They'd arrived early, Madonna was late. But far from dampening their enthusiasm, it merely fueled their impatience for a glimpse of their idol. They weren't disappointed when she finally stepped into the airport lounge, dwarfed by security guards and police.
I like living this way.
About 1,000 fans had waited patiently for the reclusive superstar to arrive in Britain, and when Lufthansa Airbus Flight 1612 finally came into view an hour late, the fans reacted wildly. Minutes afterwards, Michael Jackson's plane was surrounded by airport workers and the entourage that shadow his every move, before being ushered across the tarmac to greet the fans, some of whom had waited for hours for just a glimpse of their hero.
They had all the good venues tied up.
But what's this? Is this Prince's entourage I see before me? How do they feel seeing so few fans so soon after Jacko conquered the UK and London airports? They giving you any problems?
No, not at all. They're friends.
Yeah. Meanwhile, back at the meeting-greeting corner, some Prince fans have finally showed up. The only question now is, will the great man come through the normal exit channels? The airport win, and Prince finally comes through the side door, complete with bodyguards and entourage. My moment has come. Has he got a message for his fans? I think he said God is alive, point, because 100 fans appear out of nowhere and mob Prince and anyone who's with him.
Contrary to what we were expecting, the fans have come out of nowhere. It is beginning to resemble Jackson's arrival. Prince has arrived and started tour in the UK, and as you can see, it's utter pandemonium. Susie Grant, CDAM at Heathrow Airport.
When he said to play Europe first, we all had a huge blow up. Farnoli was on the phone. We were both like, Prince, man, you got to rethink this. This is not smart. Usually when he made a decision, he was just like, I don't care what you say. That's your job. Make it work.
I want this, so figure it out.
By the way, I disagreed with everything that happened after we left.